Well, everybody, welcome to this week's edition of Racing Hotspot. I'm Devin Postlesny. I'm joined by Mr. Jordan Jenkins. Jordan, how you doing today?
Doing good, Devin. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Doing good. It is Tuesday, February 27th. We're recording this a day late. We don't really have a set schedule yet. I don't have a release schedule. It's not like we have to fight for airtime with other radio podcasts. Um, but anyways, recording this on Tuesday, the 27th, a couple days after the Atlanta weekend, which I think was it ended on a really high note. It went
Did
better, I think, in general overall because first of all, Mother Nature didn't get the memo we were racing in Atlanta this weekend,
Yeah,
which is good.
there was no threat of rain at all, which is there was like a 1% chance of rain like all weekend in Atlanta.
Right. I think she thought we were racing over in Vegas or wherever it was raining up in the mid northwest corner of the the country. Um, she thought we were in Portland or something. But
Mm.
no, I think overall, I think it was a great weekend. What we're gonna do, folks, is obviously the big talking point is that Cup race, three wide finish. You know, my goodness, what a fantastic race! But we're gonna talk about the other series first here, the trucks and the Xfinity. Not only because we think they're going to be quick talking points, but also it's just going to follow the way of the schedule. And obviously, we had truck. We had truck race first, Xfinity race, then the Cup race. But we also want to talk about that Joey Logano penalty with what Fox's Mike Joy described the baseball type glove that he had to try and catch the air to keep the air out of his race car, and talk about that, and then whatever else sprinkles in.
Yep.
That's kind of how this goes. So, Jordan, I caught the end of the truck race. Or actually the beginning of the truck race. It seemed pretty calm, all things considered. But
Yeah, I didn't
go ahead.
see the whole race myself either, but I did see highlights, and it did seem like it was a pretty calm race overall.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think compared to Daytona last week to be coming into Atlanta, a similar super speedway. I think that's what they're calling this. It's a mile shorter than Daytona and Talladega, but it still runs at the same characteristics. I think everyone was kind of not scared. That's not the right word, but coming out of Daytona, it definitely was one of those. What's going to happen because of what happened at
Right,
Daytona?
right, and I mean, it, for the truck series standpoint, the series director is probably pleased that it was a calm race compared to what the last two races were. Obviously, last week at Daytona and the season finale at Phoenix.
Mm, right.
But overall, I don't think there was a lot of action overall in that race. And I'm going to say the same thing for the Xfinity Series race as well,
Yeah.
which is, I think, why a lot of people were expecting the same thing with the Cup race in Atlanta. Because obviously, it's like, oh, usually the truck race or the Xfinity race, sometimes both. Obviously, someone if the truck series is racing that weekend, truck and Xfinity usually have the best race of the weekend over the Cup series.
Right.
So it's obviously like, oh no, the truck series and Xfinity series didn't really have a great race. What's the Cup race going to be like?
Right. Right. I mean, and I listened to one of my favorite podcasts, Door Bumper Clear, half of their show this morning, and don't worry, folks, I'll go back, or to the DBC guys, I'll go back and listen to the rest of it. But they had mentioned the same exact thing. Everyone kind of measures the weekend off of how the Xfinity race is or how the truck race is, and those two races weren't horrible. They had action, they were passing. You had moves, you had situations, like good racing situations, but they were not your spectacular weekend. Like everybody thought last week, the Daytona 500 is going to be a wreck fest, and it wasn't up until about 10 to go when the whole field got involved in that one accident at the end of the back straightaway. But like overall, it wasn't bad. So I think this is the second week in a row that your lesser, your not lesser, your lower level series. There's the words. The lower level series is not previewing and showing what your top dog is gonna be. And I think Jordan, agree or disagree with me on this. I think that's a good thing. Like
Yeah,
when
yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, and what I mean by that is just to further elaborate, because I realize it might just be like, yeah, it was a good thing the Cup race was better, but like I always liked it when your series were different.
Yes.
Because I mean, NASCAR is trying to get people to come to both days. And the diehards like you and I are going to go sit in Loudon's June sun 2 days in a row to watch, what is it, 500 miles of racing, 600 miles of racing with the modifieds, if I'm doing my math correctly.
It would be 600 miles.
600 or 601 technically. But no, I mean, we're crazy enough, but NASCAR's trying to get that fan base to do both. And
Hmm.
having one series be different than the other might not work so well. But at the same time, for us as the diehards, we don't want the same race 2 days in a row.
Right.
So I see this as a good thing. As far as I saw on Twitter somebody said it was a snooze fest for the Xfinity race. I don't really know if I would use the same word, but
I mean, I did catch the whole Xfinity race, and it was also a calm race, but that really didn't have a lot of action until like the very end when you had like half the field run out of fuel.
I was gonna say
Mostly, mostly the Fords in the field.
I heard it was a fuel mileage race.
Yeah, it definitely was, which was kind of why the Daytona 500 got as much hate as it did because the Cup race did the same thing during the 500, where it was more of a fuel mileage race. The Xfinity Series was the ultimately the same thing.
Mm. I mean, I think that goes back to what we talked about last week with the whole strategy side of it. And I mean, your your Xfinity guys are a little younger; they're newer ish into the sport. For them to run a fuel strategy race and then run out of gas, I would say I don't want to say that's on par, but when you're looking at the veterans of the sport, the big guy, the Denny Hamlins and the Joey Logano's who have been in it forever, to be able to manage fuel, that's like just another day in the office for them. Whereas your Jesse Loves, who are brand new to the Xfinity car, he runs out of fuel. I don't know if he did, but if he ran out of fuel, then it's like, well, I don't want to say that's expected, but you know, go from a go kart to a Legends car, they're gonna run differently to try and save fuel.
Right. I mean, yeah, Jesse Love did run out of fuel,
Oh, he
obviously,
did.
right?
Okay.
Like pretty much right on the restart in the overtime.
Okay. I unfortunately did not get the chance to catch the Xfinity race. I wanted to
If
watch it before the Cup race on Sunday, but then things just got crazy.
I wish I could remember how many drivers lost fuel, every single one, but I know Jesse Love ran out of fuel like right on the restart. Allgaier ran out of fuel. Haley Deegan ran out of fuel. There was a few more in that, but obviously Jesse Love was looking like he was probably going to win the race if he didn't run out of fuel,
Hmm.
which
Just
which I would say not bad for someone that was in their second career Xfinity start.
yeah, he's doing really well. He's doing a really good
Three, I
job.
mean, is he two poles and three stage wins in his first two races Xfinity?
I'd
I
say
think that's
that's
pretty
on.
good.
And he's not on rookie mode on NASCAR Heat 5.
No, he's not.
He's doing the real
He's
thing.
making it seem like he is, but
Uh, yeah. No, I mean, I think he had a great race from what I heard and what I saw in the highlights and everything. Just came up short.
Mhm.
Came up short. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think overall, from again what I saw, those two races were as you said, calm, and they weren't snooze fests. I could understand where people might say that, but I don't think they were. I think they were
I
more
think a lot of
calm than
people
anything.
said that. I think a lot of people said that for the truck race because obviously Kyle Busch won the Truck Series race,
Mm,
and we all know it's been, I would say, a controversy for the last several years now with Kyle Busch
probably
racing in under like in the lower series like the Xfinity and trucks.
probably close to a decade by now. But I mean,
Yeah,
the good. Ooh,
but
excuse me.
obviously that's why the what is called the Kyle Busch rule. I did that in
I was
quotations
gonna
so
say
for the people that
unofficially,
won't
yeah.
be able to see us. The Kyle Busch rule, where Cup Series drivers, I think it's if they're 3 years in the Cup Series or 5 years in the Cup Series, they can only do five races in each series a year.
Hmm.
So obviously, Kyle Busch won in Atlanta on Saturday, and he's running this weekend again at Vegas. So
And I think that
it probably was cool on the Spire Motorsports side of it. There's a team that's not really in victory lane much to get a win. Obviously, help Kyle Busch doing that, but it is kind of cool too because I believe that was the first. Yeah, that was the first Spire win from our Spire Motorsports in the Truck Series since they bought KBM,
no, that makes sense.
Kyle Busch Motorsports.
No, that makes sense because it's only the second race into the season, and they bought him over the summer or over the winter. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I think that that was also
I think Kyle Busch still has a ownership part in Spy truck team though. I'm not too sure. I think he still has a say overall of the overlook,
I don't
I
know.
believe, but I know he's not the owner anymore.
I don't know how that goes. I know that there is parts of the contract that say like, hey, you're going to run you run some races for us here and there, which I think that is good because it is, as anybody can imagine, when you purchase a race team or start a race team, it's difficult to try and compare yourself to the big leagues like the Hedricks and the Joe Gibbs and the Penske's because, you know, is it are we not as good because we don't have Kyle Larson? All right, maybe a bad example,
Right.
but we don't have Joey Logano, or is it because of our equipment? And I think for them to have Kyle Busch come in, and I think this is probably part of the reason why they had Kyle Busch run a handful of their races this year, was that you now have a measuring stick. The
Yes.
equipment is solid because a top tier cup driver came in and he went from the back to the front a couple different times. Like it wasn't like he was just out in front of the draft all day. He worked traffic, he made it work. He did what he needed to do. So now you have to believe in that competition meeting back at Charlotte that they're sitting there going, okay, the equipment's good. Now we just need to find the drivers to back it. So,
I mean, and one thing that while we are on the topic of Kyle Busch Motorsports is they have I don't know if you heard about this, but they have sued Rev Racing for breach of contract.
really,
And Rev Racing is in a truck series, and their driver is Nick Sanchez, who just won a Daytona last week.
I wonder what the
So
breach of
in the
contract is.
lawsuit, KBM claims it's owed $325,000 from Concord-based Rev Racing. Their website says they are the competition arm of the diversity program.
Hmm.
KBM said they partnered with Rev Racing to field NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series driver Nick Sanchez last season, but it claimed Rev Racing missed several payments tied to their agreement.
Oh, so it's money related.
Yeah, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's just gonna affect how Kyle Busch races Nick Sanchez." And overall, I was like, "Why would Nick Sanchez have anything to do with that?" I mean, obviously, he's a driver that it's ultimately tied back to, but obviously, it's not Nick Sanchez's fault.
Wow.
But Nick Sanchez did get a top five at Atlanta, though. So obviously, a win at Daytona last week, and then on Saturday got top five. So solid start for him
Mm,
to start the year. He was strong last year, obviously, but great start for him so far this year.
for sure. Any other? I just opened up my email and saw some TV numbers from this weekend. We can talk about that, and before I do that, any other thoughts from you on the Xfinity and Truck Series?
Mm,
We can come back
Shane
to this
Van
too. But
Gisbergen.
oh, yes.
Shane Van Gisbergen, P3 in Atlanta.
Where did he qualify? Do you have that information in front of you? I didn't catch
Um,
that.
he qualified 13th.
So we went up 10 positions in the whole. Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, solid finish for him. Chandler Smith second, finished out the podium, and Sheldon Creed fourth. Obviously, we had another Sheldon Creed Austin Hill battle, which probably going to see almost every week in the Xfinity Series.
Probably.
And a Parker Retzlaff too of Jordan Anderson Racing got a P5 too. So
That's true.
Jeremy Clements got in the top, finished sixth. Anthony Alfredo seventh. Jeffrey Earnhardt, the nephew of Dale Jr.,
Hmm.
eighth. Ryan Truex nine, and Sammy Smith 10th. So overall, I mean,
Wow.
a lot of those not mid-tier level teams obviously Sammy Smith is Junior Motorsports, but
Yeah,
and Ryan Truex is JGR, but Bretzlaff, Clements, Alfredo, they're like mid-tier teams in the Xfinity Series, and they come out of Atlanta with the top 10. Yeah, it's a super speedway, but
still
it's
though.
obviously not a Daytona or a Talladega where you don't really see an underdog win a race, win a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
But SVG, he's ninth in points right now. Obviously, it's 2 weeks, so it's early. It's 2 weeks into the season, but Shane Van Gisbergen being ninth in points after 2 races, that's a good sign.
Yeah, exactly.
Average finish of 7.5 on 2 super speedways, so not bad for someone that's never raced super speedways before last week.
Yeah, I think Las Vegas is going to be his first test, and then followed up by Phoenix. You know, those two
Hmm.
tracks are going to probably be the ones that I don't like will kind of be a gauge, but I think you can take some stuff from Atlanta over to Las Vegas, maybe a little bit, maybe not a lot, maybe a little, but like I think that if you know, you can take some basic notebook items from Atlanta to Vegas.
Yes.
Not a lot, but some basic. So the Spring Cup race this weekend was up 33% over 2023 Spring Cup race. Fox had 4.546 million viewers on Sunday night versus the 3.422 in 2023, with about a month difference in the schedule. Um, that was also up 5% from last year's second race, which was Fontana. The trucks were up 13% as well, and the Xfinity race was up 17%. So, wow, up this weekend. And that's good.
Yes.
That's trending in the right way.
Yes, it is.
I mean, what do you think? I mean, I can probably pin one thing on it, but what do you think is the reason, in your opinion, the reason for this uptick?
I think it's more because it's the beginning of the NASCAR season.
Hmm.
Usually the ratings don't stay consistent.
Okay.
Obviously, the 500 last week had like I think it was like 6 million viewers,
Which
maybe 10 million. I don't
which
quite remember the number.
which
The
wasn't
500 last year,
yeah, it was up,
which
but it
wasn't bad, but obviously being at Monday race, obviously you knew the numbers were not going to be what they were going to be on if it raced on Sunday. But
I was just gonna
it's so
say.
early in the NASCAR season, so everyone's still like pumped up, and obviously, so no one's gonna want to miss something. But
I think they
whew, I just wonder what the ratings are going to be like at Vegas next week, knowing what we had as a finish. Maybe we're going to be like, oh, we're going to get that again, which you probably won't because that's a rare occurrence. But you
right.
never know.
I mean, and I also think as much as people were like, oh, Daytona numbers were either just below what they were or just above what they were, I don't think you can use that as a gauge this year only because your ARCA race was at 11 o'clock on Friday night. Your
Yes.
truck race was scheduled correctly,
Mhm.
but the average fan is not going to sit through, what was it, 12 cautions? The
Yes.
average fan is going to go, ah, never mind. There's something else on. I mean, my dad would
Yeah.
have changed it over to
Exactly.
Law and Order by by the fourth or fifth caution. Um, but like then like the Xfinity race was at 9 p.m. on Monday night. So like my point is as much as you want to sit there and say, oh well, you know the numbers for these races weren't what they're supposed to, or they only barely got over. Consider the fact that they were on Monday and Monday night. ARCA was Friday night at midnight. I mean, I didn't make it to the end of the race. My DVR didn't even finish recording half the race. It went to bed
I
too.
did. I did. I felt proud of myself.
You know? No, but I mean, it's just like I don't think you can use that as a gauge. And I think, in my opinion, your uptick in Atlanta racing, racing viewers, and even the 5% from Fontana last year to Atlanta this year being the second race, I would want to say part of that is because of that Netflix series. You know, you have people scrolling through Netflix and going, what is this? And Netflix did a fantastic job with explaining the sport to your common fan.
Yes.
They did a great job of saying, this is a 10-second pit stop. 11 seconds? Oh my goodness, it means this. Not just, 11 seconds is bad. Well, why was it bad? So my point is I think the Netflix series is doing something that it did for Formula One, which was it brought attention to Formula One, and it brought Formula One viewership up, and it brought viewership and fan viewership from the United States, at least, as from what I know, went up. Hence why we now have 3 Grand Prix in one country. I think that
Yes.
it's the same thing you're going to see at NASCAR.
Oh, absolutely.
And then, of course, you have a 3 wide photo finish that's being compared to the Cars movie.
Same thing.
That helps. It's the same thing.
Literally the same finish.
But
Side by side.
but that
Can't compare it otherwise.
but that helps. Because now everywhere on social media is, did you see this? Even if you're not a NASCAR fan, you're still going, what? 3 wide at the end of the race? And it wasn't Daytona or Talladega?
I was gonna say NASCAR Twitter probably still hasn't recovered, but they were definitely not recovered yesterday because that's rightfully so. I mean, how often do we have a 2 wide finish like that at the line? I mean, usually Talladega usually does it, but anywhere else besides that, where do we usually have a 2 wide finish like that? Never mind a 3 wide.
Yeah. I mean, and that it was something special when the competitors who quote unquote lost, Kyle Busch and Ryan Blaney, get out and look at the replay and go, whoa, that was cool. Like they didn't get out and were like even on those side by side finishes, you'll have like a driver get out and they'll be like, well, I could have done this, I could have done that, I could have done this. But meanwhile, these guys got out and they're just like,
Yeah, as
whoa,
mid interview for Ryan Blaney too. He's getting interviewed, and then you can see him look up and he goes, "I haven't seen it yet," and he goes, "Holy shit, that was close.
exactly.
That's awesome." And he goes, "That's awesome." And he was on the short end of that. He finished runner up to that.
Right, exactly. So like even when your competitors are sitting there going, whoa, that's a win. That's a huge win for racing and a huge win for NASCAR. And, the sport that just goes in circles finishes less than 7 1 thousandths of a second of each other. I mean, the whole top 10 was within 3/10 of each other coming to the line. 3/10 of
Yes,
a second. 3/10 of a second. Let's put that out there.
yeah. First to third was a separation of 7 1 thousandths of a second. So Suarez also got the race when Blaney finished runner up. He was 3 1 thousandths of a second.
Yep.
Yeah, I said that right.
Yep. Yep.
3 1 thousandths of a second from Suarez, and Bush was 7 1 thousandths of a second from Suarez.
Right. Like, and that's your top 3, folks. Then you go back to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and guess what? 10th, I think, was 0.235 or something like that. Like, it was less than 3/10 of a second. And again, I cannot stress this enough. That was a second. Like, look at your watch for a minute. You saw that 1 second? Guess what? They were faster than that. like, like
Yes.
it was crazy. And again, I think that that's huge. I think that the fans are blowing it up. I mean, we shared it. You and I shared it on our social media accounts. And there are people who are friends with us on Facebook or follow us on Instagram or whatever who are going, I don't like racing. I'm just friends with Devin. And then they see that and they're like, oh, whoa, what?
Yes.
So that's exciting stuff for sure.
The
Um,
only thing we were missing, that's the only thing that's different from the car scene, from that it finishes, they were not tied as a
that's true.
line.
That's true.
So they don't have to race at California Speedway for the Piston Cup. That
Oh,
that is,
man.
that is not going to be a thing. We have a race winner.
Could you imagine? We got to tie everyone onto the quarter mile. Run the quarter mile at Atlanta.
Well,
Um,
that's what a lot of people on NASCAR Twitter were saying. Everyone, because a lot of NASCAR fans like to look at the movie Cars as a NASCAR documentary. So someone, so I can recall seeing someone under either NASCAR's post or Bob Hawkins or Jeff Gluck's post. I can't
Hmm.
remember what one of those three, but someone was like, I think I've seen this in a documentary once where it was tied at the line and they went to California Speedway and did a three car race for the Piston Cup.
Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to go to California Speedway unless we want to run on the dirt track out there.
Hey, it's
But
been done before.
but
It's been done before at Bristol. They can do it at Fontana.
different type of dirt out there, Jordan. I think that's called construction dirt now. Uh, all right, not construction dirt. For those of you going, what did he just say? It's just a construction zone. But anyways, no, I mean, going back to the whole TV rating things, I know we kind of got ahead of ourselves with the cup race, but going back to the TV rating things, I think it's good. I also think this race was on Big Fox. It wasn't on FS1. It ran, I think it was regular Fox. It ran past its TV window. So it ran into 7:30 territory where I think it was allotted till 6:30, which again isn't a bad thing. But the point is you have people coming on a Sunday night looking for their local news or their Sunday night TV show, and they have NASCAR, but you know, it's not single file, drivers out 4 seconds in front of the others. It's side by side, running on a really fast race course, really small course as well. Like it's as much as we love Daytona, you have to admit that there are sometimes you look at Daytona and you're just like, we're not done a lap yet. It's like after a while, 50 or 49 seconds take forever. Whereas at Atlanta, I think what they were running mid 40s, if not low 30s. And,
Yes,
so your average fan who might be going, I don't really care, is now watching this going, whoa, this is crazy. It's kind of like when people watch the Bristol race and they're doing 15 to 20-second lap times. So
exactly.
I don't know. I think it's definitely a good trend in the right direction for the sport, and I think that it means good things.
What? So since we're obviously you kind of mentioned it at the forefront of the show, Joey Logano's glove,
Yeah, let's talk about that.
which I think sparked confusion all day Sunday until Mike Joy so I should say Fox showed footage of the in-car camera from Saturday
I was
during
gonna say
qualifying of Logano's glove,
so real
and
quick. Let me.
Mike Joy had a clear explanation of exactly what the penalty was because obviously everyone was like, "You got penalized for a glove? Like what? What is this?"
So I do want to quickly say this, and I know we've talked about this on and off screen, and I'm not looking to get into that right now with you, but I will say that it was weird how the penalty comes out and Fox Race Day is like, oh, it is because that glove is not certified. It's not
Yes.
approved. They didn't give much information other than it's not approved. And then at one point they were like, yeah, watch this replay. And they show it. And they're like, see, right there, it's not approved. And I immediately looked at the what's it called? The patch on it. Like I was like, oh, the patch clear. Like I wonder if NASCAR said, oh, that patch is not consistent with everything else. And I'm like, okay. So then 25, 30 minutes later, we start the regular race broadcast and they start explaining what happened. And then Mike Joy goes, see right there? See the webbing in between his fingers, kind of like a baseball glove? And I went, oh my goodness. My point is that it clearly the webbing was the reason that it was not approved. It was a modified part.
And everyone
It wasn't
and
it wasn't because of the glove itself. It was because of the
yeah,
webbing.
it was the webbing,
My
and obviously
point.
you can tell by the glove too, as Mike Joyce said before the race when they obviously I don't want to say had to explain, but obviously they know NASCAR fans were confused because this is the first time I believe any driver's been penalized for a glove.
Right. And also fans don't necessarily watch race day. They'll just come on at 3 o'clock. So you have to kind of
Right.
go over those
So
storylines.
Mike Joy said when they showed the in-car camera from Logano's car during qualifying on Saturday, you can see clear as day the webbing. And as Mike Joy said, like a baseball glove, like you mentioned. And as Mike Joy also said, and some NASCAR reporter said, Jeff Gluck, he said the glove was clearly altered, which I think was mainly the reason it was penalized. Not it was obviously it wasn't SFI approved,
Hmm.
but it was also clearly altered to give an advantage.
And I guess my point to go back to that real quick was that, and I don't know if it was just that that information didn't come out, so Fox was trying to explain it without knowing the full information. But I don't think, and I'm not trying to put anybody down here, but I don't think that race day crew did a good job of explaining the situation. And again, it might just be that they did not know exactly why. I mean, that breaking news came
Right,
out maybe 20 minutes before they went on air. So they
right, and
might be going,
obviously,
they might be saying, "Oh, it's just not approved, it's not approved." And then by the time Mike Joy gets to it, now you have
mhm.
that information as to it was because of this. But I will say when Mike Joy explained it, I like threw my hands in the air and I wanted to like, if I knew Mike Joy personally, I wanted to be like, "You hit the nail on the
Yeah,
head," because
that was a great
he did a great job.
explanation for him, and obviously it helped that they showed the in car too, so it wasn't like we were looking at like the pre-race stuff, like cars on the grid as Mike Joy's explaining this, or like they're in the booth and he's explaining it. They showed Logano's glove as Mike Joy was explaining, which kind of gave everyone a good visual too.
Right. Exactly. I
And
mean,
obviously, Mike Joy has been in the sport for a long time, so I feel like obviously when he sees something like that, it's like, oh, that's not normal.
well, exactly. I mean, and also he probably somebody, like I said, probably at that point they got a more clear explanation as to it is because of the webbing. And then Mike Joy said, okay, well, I can relate that to this. And
So
boom,
obviously
so
now after doing research and looking at it more, for the people that are still like, why would he be penalized for a glove that's like a baseball mitt? The reason is because the is used to deflect air away from the window. Obviously, during qualifying, you can see drivers stick their hand out the window. They kind of keep as much air away from getting into the car as possible.
yeah, they stick
With
their
a
hand out.
web glove, it keeps him from out of the car altogether. It kind of like gets stuck to his glove in a way.
Well, I don't know if it,
Obviously,
I don't,
the air doesn't get stuck, but it like attracts to the glove.
well, I was going
So
to say, I don't know if it
it
keeps it,
gives and it also gives more arrow to the car itself when Logano has his hand out the window with a glove like that,
right.
and it actually apparently gives the car more speed, which I read yesterday.
It doesn't fully keep, and this is from what I've just heard
Right.
from Clint and Harvick, it doesn't fully keep the air out. It just helps reduce it that much more,
Yeah, and
which
which
could
gives the
be,
car
yeah.
which gives the car better arrow and better speed, obviously.
And I
And
think, and
I also just saw something too as you were talking a little bit ago. The in car camera came out for Logano's qualifying lap at Daytona last week. In a slow motion, it appeared that Logano had the same gloves on,
hmm,
and obviously Logano got the pull for the 500.
hmm. I mean,
So
and again, I don't think, and hopefully NASCAR comes out with a little bit more of a clarification here because they just kind of came out with a broad stroke. This is what it is. But I think I want to believe that the the netting part isn't the glove, the webbing part isn't the issue. It's the fact that he modified a component that is designed to keep you safe.
mhm.
Yeah, granted, yes, that's a competitive advantage. That he could put his hand up, and now his hand with the webbing is taking up more of a space up against that that driver net. I can't think of the actual word. What is that called? The net that they climb, the driver window. There's an actual word for it, but I can't think of what it is. But basically the window net. Duh.
Yeah, the window.
Sorry. So the webbing is going to take up more of an area up against the window net, but I think it was more so the fact that he modified a safety component, And now the question, of course, then becomes, because of those modifications, is it going to still perform the same way it's intended? You know,
Right.
if he's in an accident and there's fire around his hands and he has to put himself out or move something, because of that webbing, is now his left hand going to burn? And I think that was ultimately what made NASCAR say, okay, this is the issue. Now, granted,
Right.
a couple days later, they might come out and say, also, it was because he had a competitive advantage. But I think it was in the beginning because he modified a safety component.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued to see if NASCAR does any additional penalties. Um, usually
I
they
gotta assume there's some sort of fine that would be coming to the team.
right. Usually it would either come later today, Tuesday, or tomorrow, Wednesday. Um, but yeah, no, I would assume so too, and I wonder if NASCAR is going to come up with some safety, like, or some, not safety, competitive advantage, uh, bylaw, not bylaw, but like an extra line in the rule book that says also, even if this glove is okay to use because of the safety components, we still don't allow this.
Right.
Um,
And obviously, he was penalized, but he was gonna originally be like 2 or 3 laps down at the very beginning, but obviously they wrecked on lap 2 while Logano was on pit road, so he never lost a lap to
which
begin with.
which that seems to be a track record. What was it? Kevin Harvick had to do a pass through at Bristol or something, and there was an accident, and then like there was another one where somebody had to do a pass through, and there was an accident. So folks, if you're ever at a race and a driver has to do a pass through, I would say there's a good chance you're going to see an accident on lap 2.
Yes.
If you are into sports betting, that is the time to put money down on lap 2 accident. Um, One thing I wanted to mention was the truck series roof coming off. So the reason why I bring this up is because it was brought up in the Door Bumper Clear podcast of NASCAR possibly doing something where they require a tether or something in there, like a different part to the trucks to make sure that this doesn't happen, because the truck was driving along, the roof flies off. It's now a projectile. NASCAR caught it quickly to make sure to put the field under caution. But if he was closer to the front of the field, how is this going to be when it slams off the windshield of a guy in the back? You know,
Right.
and that's a whole roof piece. Like, it's not just like not just like the roof
It's the
flap.
part it's the part he climbs out of. The
Right.
whole latch pretty much came off.
Exactly. So,
It became a half sunroof.
right, exactly. He had the
Just
convertible.
without the window.
He
There's
was
no window.
he was testing the Mazda series for NASCAR. But it just makes me wonder, because like as they mentioned on Door Bumper Clear, and they record their shows Monday, most of those truck teams are already on the road Monday night, if not Tuesday morning, to Las Vegas. So if NASCAR's coming out on Monday afternoon and saying, "Hey, you need to do this, this, and this," how do you do that? You know, so I guess I don't have much more information on it, and I don't know if you can find any information over there. But I figured I would just throw it out there as just something to keep in mind, um, going forward. You know, see how it affects this weekend in Vegas, or if it doesn't, or if it doesn't even get brought up. But just something I was thinking about, or I heard from DBC, and it was
Well,
made me think about
well,
it.
I do know what caused his roof to ultimately come off.
All right, enlighten us, sir.
So under green, Bailey Curry said a piece of debris hit the top of his windshield,
Okay.
cracked the windshield, like and it broke the brace where the windshield and the roof connect.
That'll do it.
After the contact, the roof buckled, and with wind getting inside the cockpit, the roof eventually just
So
went.
okay, well, that'll do it. So I wonder if now NASCAR is going to come out and say, "All right, folks or drivers, we're gonna in like reinforce this, reinforce that. But again, how do you do that when you come out on Monday and say, "Hey, we're going to do this," and then NASCAR teams are like, "Well, truck's already on the road.
Right.
No
I
can
mean,
do,
I can't
boss."
see NASCAR penalizing him for it because obviously it's not like the team did it on purpose.
Right.
It's obviously it's kind of unlucky a piece of debris hitting it, which is I'd say a rare occasion because I don't know if I've ever seen some
Well,
something like that happen. So obviously it's a unlucky situation, but obviously I don't think that he gets penalized at all for hitting a piece of debris, which obviously NASCAR didn't see.
no, I mean, and I agree with you on that. I don't think there's going to be a penalty, um, but I do think that, like I said, the question I had was the fact that you have NASCAR coming out and saying, "Well, there's a possibility we're going to have you do a safety upgrade," and it's like, well, when? Because the truck already rolled out, or whatever the case may be. So it just makes me wonder, and again, I guess we'll have to see. But just keep that in mind is really what I'm getting at is that's a potential storyline to when they get to Vegas if NASCAR says, "Hey, you need to change this, this, and this."
Hmm.
How's that work with the teams who might not have this, this, and this to fix?
Right.
So definitely interesting. But we had a cup race on Sunday night that is potentially one of the best in Atlanta history, if not in the recent history of NASCAR. Um, Before we talk about the finish, and I do a quick kind of poll to determine if we think that it's one of the greatest finishes in NASCAR, let's go through the race. So we start the race. Joey Logano has a penalty. He's got to go to the back. Chase Elliott had a penalty as well as a couple others. They all had to start in the back. Um, Joey Logano had to do a pass through. So race starts. He goes down the back straightaway and pulls right off into pit road. And then we have a accordion effect outside row coming across the start finish line. Sees Austin Dillon spin. Sees Noah Gragson spin. You got a handful, probably 14 or 15 cars wadding it up in turn one, lap number two.
16 car wreck on lap two, biggest car pileup in Atlanta history right off the bat. Lap two,
Boom,
Atlanta Motor Speedway history already.
boom. So then you kind of drivers settle in. You have a spin. There's Denny Hamlin who gets spun or after contact with Kyle Busch, whether it was Kyle Busch spun him or Denny Hamlin came down. I don't really know. Nothing really came of that either. Like it wasn't anything where they fought
And
or
as
anything.
Denny Hamlin said on his podcast, actions detrimental yesterday, he completed the trifecta. He spun out in every stage.
Perfect. Perfect.
Stage one off the bumper, Kyle Busch, which was Denny thinking he was clear, and he wasn't.
Mm,
Stage
interesting.
two, stage two was Joey Logano being I don't know, coming up the track to try to block Busher.
He thought he was
Coming up
clear.
3 lanes, he thought he was clear. Busher was directly beside Logano, took out Busher, and Hamlin obviously nailed Busher in the back,
I say he thought he was clear.
which pretty much took Logano out of the race. Hamlin that wasn't affected. He ended up being P4 after all that.
Yeah.
I don't know how he was. And then obviously in stage three, he got trapped four wide, and Briscoe tried to make it work with four wide, which has worked, but at that part of the track it didn't.
Mm.
So Briscoe spun, and that's what pretty much took Hamlin out of contention of the race. He still finished he finished 23rd with a lap down after that.
Mm.
Hamlin did so. He joked saying he completed the trifecta, spinning in every stage.
So that kind of recaps the rest of the race.
And he also did the cliche of I did everything but hit the pace car.
Which, funny enough, Kyle Busch has at Loudon.
Yeah,
So, so there's
I'm sure
there's
there's been more than times than just Loudon that he's the Cowboys hit the pace car.
that's true. That's true. But no. So overall, though, Really good race, competitive. It was fun. Um, Jordan, I want to ask your opinion. You have contact between what was it? Who was it? It was McDowell and Byron.
Byron.
Entrance to pit road. No caution. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so obviously that was controversial the whole way because obviously they went back to last week of like, oh, you threw the caution when Chastain and Cindric went down the track and did that, but you don't spin it when McDowell and Byron are damaged but not badly, sitting on pit road, the entrance of pit road while green flag pit stops are going on.
Which, of course, for those of you who don't know, Atlanta's entrance to pit road isn't the normal one you'd see on a mile and a half. It's over in
Yeah.
turn 3.
Yes, and pit road exits pit as on turn one,
Yeah,
so it's a
normal. But point is
yeah.
they're not behind like a concrete wall like you'd see at Martinsville or something like Charlotte. They are right in the thick of it. So
And most pit road speeds are 45 miles per hour. Atlanta's is once they get the pit road. But like green flag pit stops, it's 90 until they get to the actual entrance of pit road,
on
like the
in
first
turn
stop.
4. Yeah.
It goes down to 45. But
So
yellow flag under caution, it's 45 all the way around. So that just goes to show you how confusing the pit road pit road speed at Atlanta is. And obviously, we had a lot. I think wonder if we set a record for most speeding penalties and one during the green flag cycle during that time. Josh Berry got it twice. Forget who else got speeding penalties, but I know Josh Berry got it twice. William Byron got it. McDowell got one. It was like everyone was. It was like Oprah and then the show. You get a car. You get a car. No, you get a speed penalty. You get one. You get a penalty. You get a penalty.
and for those of you out there listening going, "Wait, why are they entering a turn 3 and driving along the apron?" It's because the entrance to the old pit road at Atlanta, unlike Talladega and Daytona, you literally come off the banking and turn. So when you're doing the high speeds that they're now doing in Atlanta, NASCAR said this is not a safe situation and it's going to result in an accident. And they said
Which it
okay,
still does.
which it still does, but at least it's not a big one off turn 4. Um, so now they have them enter in turn 3 and drive around. And at first, it was 45 all the way around. And everybody threw their arms up saying, "What?" And then NASCAR said, "Okay, under green, it's this to this point, and then that from that point." Still a little
Agree.
confusing, but
But everyone was like, "How come you're not throwing the caution? There's only two cars blocking pit road." But based on my understanding of what I saw an explanation of, NASCAR tries not to throw a caution for something like that during green flag pit stops,
right.
even though they probably should have.
Yeah.
Because you have two cars. Byron was sitting there for a little bit.
Yeah.
McDowell ultimately drove off right away, but Byron was sitting there for a little bit. His car wasn't firing right away.
And he was pointed at the double white line, which is the bottom of the racing line. Like he wasn't up
Yes,
against the wall, he wasn't away from the racing line.
he was
He
like right in the
was
middle of pit road.
right there. Yeah.
Like if some that was ultimately the end of green flag pit stops anyway. I don't think anyone else came on the pit road after that. But it's kind of goes to show you how NASCAR can be confusing at times. Because usually they throw a caution for something like that, but because essentially they said green flag pit stops, they try not to throw cautions. Then everyone's kind of like,
I,
"What are we doing?"
and it's so funny that they say that. So they say that, but then at the same in the same 7 days they come out and say the drivers were driving at 50% throttle. We're gonna look into that. So it's like, hang on. Part of the strategy is the game. We understand where you're coming from, NASCAR, where you're saying, look, we understand the strategy. We don't want to mess up green flag pit stops. But if that's what happens, that's what happens. Race control should not, in my opinion, I'm putting that above this. In my opinion, race control should not take into consideration your strategies. You are there to call a race.
Mm.
You're there to call a safe race. What if Byron high sides himself, like you might see at Daytona, can't can't get it going, and by the time NASCAR says, "Whoa, put it out," you have guys coming maybe down the back straightaway, they let off the gas, but they're still doing 150 miles an hour into turn 3, and
Hmm.
boom, now you have an almost a head-on wreck with a car that's doing maybe by that point 130, 140, and a car that's not moving. Like, I get where NASCAR's coming from. You don't want to mess up the pit cycles. You don't want to mess up that. That's fine. I get it. But at the same time, the crew chiefs and everybody, they play the game. You know, you see it in Formula One. Oh, a car is stopped on the exit of turn 7. Everybody dives to pit road
Hmm.
because they expect that full course yellow or, you know, whatever the case may be. So they all dive to pit road because that is the game they're playing. And I think that NASCAR needs to not worry about the strategy. They need to worry about calling the race. I don't think you can relate this to the situation in Daytona because NASCAR made it clear, you know, oh, well, if they had stayed in the grass, we would have let them go because they would have probably been able to drive away. That's fine. And then as soon as Sendra came back up to the racetrack, that's when you had to throw a caution. If
Hmm.
Byron stalled out, they probably would have thrown a caution. But,
Byron did stall out.
sorry, let me phrase that. If stalled out for longer than he
Yeah.
did, then they would have probably thrown a caution. But again, at a track like Atlanta where they're doing, again, unofficially, I'm going to say 30 to 45-second lap times, maybe closer to 45 seconds. I don't know off the top of my head. You need to be quick on your calls. And if you have two cars backwards, Mike Dowell was backwards. He was pointing the wrong direction in a unprotected part of pit road. Like, he was, what, 40 feet away from the racing line? Backwards? I say you throw a caution there. I understand the strategy. I understand the concern of, oh, well, if we throw it here, it's going to throw everyone out. That's okay. That's fair. But the people sitting on the pit boxes are paid to figure that out. The people up in the
Right.
tower are paid to keep everybody safe.
Yes, and obviously, if that wasn't the end of green flag pit stops, is the car that comes on the pit road sees Byron right there. They're not really going to be able to move because Byron was blocking most of that pit road.
Right. Right. So, again, as I said in our broadcasts, when we cover high school sports, or even when we're filming racing, you're human, you're making a decision, heat of the moment, understandable. But at the same time, you you also need to think about the big picture there instead of saying, well, I mean, let me back up. They did think about the big picture when it came to the strategy, but they need to also think safety wise, big picture. You know, it
Yes.
wasn't like he spun out and then went into the road course section that's over in turn 3 and was away from the racing line and got back on pit road, or spun out on pit road, which is 100, 200 feet away from the racing line. He spun out and he hit the wall looking now at the back straightaway in the wrong direction. That's
Yes.
McDowell.
Byron.
And then, no, I'm saying McDowell. Then you have
Oh,
Byron,
yes.
who's now trying to drive away from the situation. And I understand why Byron did what he did, and I really hope his spotter cleared him before he did it. But Byron drove onto the racing line to drive away from the accident. If his spotter did not clear him for doing that, Willie B, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Because he literally, and at one point, I don't know if you caught this, he literally did high side himself for a moment. His right rear tire was off the ground when he went to pull away. And thankfully, his left side rear was on the ground, so he was able to pull away. But, like, he could have been in a bad situation. And again, spotters and drivers are really good in the sense that you're going to have your spotter his spotter probably cleared him and said, "You're good, go." But still, nah, just throw a caution. That's the game. The unpredictability of the game you're playing. Throw a caution.
Right.
That's my 2 cents on that situation. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. So, all right. So now, end of the race comes. We got Blaney out in front. Devin sees $10 coming back to his DraftKings account. And I'm just kidding. Kyle Busch gets a run. Daniel Suarez gets a run. All of a sudden, you're 3 wide into turn 3, still holding 3 wide. You have Bubba Wallace kind of trying to figure out where he wants to go, but because of that, he's not necessarily feeding any energy forward. Like if he stayed with Blaney, he might have been able to push Blaney forward. If he stayed with Busch or whatever, he was kind of looking for options. This results in off turn 4, 3 wide, to the line, and 3 cars, 3,200 pounds each, within 7/1000ths of a second of each other. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Crazy finish. Daniel Suarez wins. Congratulations to him. Again, the other drivers involved were just blown away with what they were just a part of. And the question I have for you is, we've seen it on social media, we've seen it everywhere. Was this, and I have an opinion on this, so I'll go second, but was this the one of the greatest finishes in NASCAR? Period.
One of absolutely. I mean, how
Is it the
often?
top 10?
Oh, 100%.
Okay. Go ahead.
The reason I say that is because, again, how often do we have three wide finish like that close together?
Fair enough.
I know it's the third closest finish in NASCAR history, obviously, with 2011 or 2003 Darlington being the closest. 2011,
Craven and Busch.
2011
Was it Talladega where they were 3 wide?
2011 Talladega being the second closest, and those were 2/1000ths of a second, 2/1000ths of a second. So that finish was 3/1000ths of a second. It was third, but it's 1/1000th a second off from being being tied for the closest finish. And I think it was just that whole lap. The move that Blaney did, or that Busch did, to make it 3 wide. Blaney coming in, and I mean, how often has NASCAR had a finish like that where people are still talking about it even today? And it's Tuesday.
It's not the Daytona 500,
Yeah,
or
and it's
a
not the Daytona
championship,
500. Yeah, exactly.
because we've had finishes where
That was just the second race of the year, and everyone's saying already hands down that's the race of the year. No one's going to beat it.
right.
I kind of feel bad for Las Vegas now because obviously they're the race following, and obviously it's still an SMI track, so it's still the same owners. But the fans going to Las Vegas this weekend are going to be like, how is this race going to even compare to what we saw at Atlanta last week?
Right. So I'm gonna give credit to my thought process here, because I listened to Door Bumper Clear this morning.
That's never a good thing.
And
You're giving credit to your thinking. That's never a good thing.
No. I'm giving credit to where my thoughts are coming from, and it was from Door Bumper Clear, because they said something this morning when I was listening to the podcast that I was just like, oh yeah, that's great, and I'm not trying, because of that, I'm not going to sit there and say that I completely disagree with you. What I will say is, I agree that it was one of the greatest finishes, but I think it might be in like the top 15 or 20, only because it's the top 10 of super speedway type finishes. In the fan point of view, yes, numbers wise, you're right. It's the third closest. Boom, it's great, but I would say, and again, this is Door Bumper Clear gave me the ideas here, so I got to give them credit, and not to loosely quote them. You are full out on the floor, hoping and praying that the air works your way to finish 3/1000ths of a second behind the guy. But yet, Marcus Ambrose wheeling his car at Watkins Glen in 2012 through an oil spill, dealing with Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski, wheeling the thing, slipping and sliding, going left and right, in and out of the throttle, on the brakes, off the brakes. That's also just as good. Ricky Craven, Kurt Busch slamming up against each other at Darlington, one of the closest numbers-wise finish. That is good. Um, Obviously, 2007, Mark Martin and Kevin Harvick come into the line. Not one of the closest, but still like I feel like
2001 Atlanta, Kevin Harvick and Jeff Gordon won the most probably.
exactly
I would probably say
the
in the sense of 2000 since the 2000s, one of the most iconic moments in NASCAR was
exactly.
Harvick. The, not even I don't even think a month after losing Dale Senior.
hmm Exactly. So
Kevin
exactly.
Harvick, the replacement for I don't want to say replacement for Dale Senior, but obviously the driver that had to come in and kind of fill that role,
hmm
winning like that for his first one at Atlanta with the three
Exactly.
fingers out the window.
hmm Yeah, like
Obviously, that one was up there too.
and then you have like the Carl Edwards and Jimmy Johnson battle at Atlanta. You had Joey Logano, Denny Hamlin at Auto Club in 2013, where unfortunately Denny Hamlin wound up crashing and breaking his back, and like that type of finish. You've had
Auto Club, I think 2013 when Logano and Hamlin touched and Kyle
yeah,
Busch won. I think it was Auto Club.
that's what I just mentioned. And I think I had said Auto Club. Either way, like yeah, exactly. So my point is numbers and time wise, yes, it was one of the top three, most the closest finishes. And don't get me wrong, folks, it was an amazing finish. It was exciting. I was screaming at the TV. Like my mom and sister are hanging out and with me, and we're just watching, and then all of a sudden I'm going, oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my, and I'm like, shh, and I was trying to get their attention to look at the TV because boom, three wide. Like it was an amazing finish. But I think when it comes to super speedway finishes, yeah, up in the top 10. Greatest finish of all time list wise for NASCAR, it's up there. But I still think your Watkins Glens and your Darlingtons and your Auto Clubs and and these other races that are really close that these drivers are wheeling their cars, I think those take the T. And again, I want to say thank you to Door Bumper Clear for giving me those ideas because they were the ones who made me go, oh yeah, oh yeah. They made me kind of see it, but still, that's just my opinion. And from your involvement, Jordan, I would say that you also are now, you also are now agreeing, like kind of
No, I
on
still agree it's top 10.
whatever,
No, I still think it's top 10.
whatever. He just wants to go against me. Um, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, and I think, like I said, I think it was a great race. I think that something else that was brought up this morning. I don't know if it was Door Pumper Clear that said it or one of the other pages or something I saw. But 3 years ago, when they said they were going to redo Atlanta, everybody was kicking and screaming. Don't repave it. Don't repave it. Don't repave it. This asphalt is old and it's racing great. Drivers like Kevin Harvick loved that track. I mean, I loved the track. It was a racer's racetrack. You had to fight up against the asphalt and race with the tires, and it was perfect. It was great. So then SMI says, guys, we got to repave this thing before it becomes a safety issue, and they redo it the way they did it. And again, I don't remember who said it or I read it or heard it, but this new Atlanta is the perfect predecessor to the old Atlanta. Right? You had Atlanta was up here as far as your, top. It was like top 5 of best racetracks on the circuit to race at, drive at, woo. And then everybody goes back. Every track goes back a couple steps when you repave it because it's just like, ugh, new asphalt.
Unless you're North Wilkesboro, I don't think it can get as bad as the All-Star race last year.
Well, okay, hold on. But I'm saying like you go to repave a track and immediately it loses its characteristics it had. Point is this track, yeah, it lost its old characteristics, but it's still just as exciting. It's one of the hottest tickets on on the schedule.
Also, there's breaking news for this weekend at Vegas.
Oh, here we go.
I don't want.
Breaking.
It's not breaking news where it's like, oh no way, wow,
Oh,
history. But
2:33 p.m. on February 27th. Some breaking news.
Bob
Fresh.
Parker's just tweeted
Here we
saying
go.
there's a new right side tire for Cup for Vegas this year, and also that also will be used at Texas, Kansas, and Nashville. It has an updated construction that hopefully gives teams more of a tuning window. Remember last year, some teams had issues with right sides in practice, but were okay in race.
Interesting.
So it's not like, wow, that's crazy, but
But it could be.
Bob Parker just released that. So
But it could be. Like that could be a huge storyline this weekend, depending on how that goes,
and obviously,
for good or bad.
about a couple hours ago, Hendrick Motorsports announced that they are once again entering their number 17 HendrickCars.com Xfinity car.
Oh yes, you had mentioned you wanted to bring that up.
Their schedule has been released. It's Alex Bowman, William Byron, Chase Hill, and Kyle Larson, as well as Boris said. So it's all starts March 9th, Phoenix Raceway, which will be William Byron at the wheel.
Mm.
And then at COTA on March 23rd, the Circuit of the Americas will be Kyle Larson. May 11th, which I think is a throwback weekend for Darlington, unless it's the player. Wait, the fall race. I don't remember. But either way, May 11th, Darlington Raceway will be William Byron. May 25th, the Coke 600, or Coke 600 weekend, I should say, is Chase Elliott. June 8th will be Sonoma race. It will be Sonoma Raceway with Boris Said. June 22nd, New Hampshire Motor Speedway with Alex Bowman. July 6th, the Chicago Street Race with Kyle Larson, because now NASCAR's going to let Cup drivers race in the Xfinity Series now. July 13th, Pocono Raceway will be William Byron. August 31st, Darlington 2 will be Chase Elliott. And September 14th, Watkins Glen will be William Byron. Obviously, I think it's kind of funny they gave Alex Bowman the 17 for New Hampshire because I feel like historically he probably does not like that track very much.
Probably.
He's had some bad luck at New Hampshire.
Yeah, he has.
But obviously, it's more track time for him. So obviously, maybe he'll get. I don't want to say get used to things because obviously he's been racing at New Hampshire for several years now. But obviously, maybe getting the extra track time in Xfinity for the Cup race, maybe he'll have more confidence with that. Because obviously he wrecked out of or I don't know if he officially wrecked out, but I know he spun out in the last 2 years.
New Hampshire is one of those tracks that we talk about the character in a racetrack, and that is, yeah, people think it's just a flat, boring 1 mile oval, but we drove on the track last summer, and let me tell you, folks, there is a lot of character to that racetrack. So much so that my Toyota Tundra might have almost needed new right side doors. But point is like it's one of those.
We almost became best friends with the turn 3 wall.
Yeah, we almost tested the safer barrier.
As I still have the video, you can hear Devin do a little scream, and then you can hear in my video the tires screeching because we got tight. We couldn't turn.
There was no grip, man. There was no grip. But yeah, no. My point is though New Hampshire's definitely one of those tracks that the more seat time you have, I believe, the better you're going to run. So to have him in the Xfinity car on Saturday and then run the Cup car Sunday, that would probably be really good for him. And honestly, I don't think it's just limited to him. I think anybody that runs an Xfinity car on Saturday and then a Cup car on Sunday on a track like New Hampshire or a track like Martinsville or a track like Phoenix, it's just benefit overall.
Right.
So, well, we've passed the 1 hour mark. Any other fast thoughts here, looking back at Atlanta or even looking ahead to Las Vegas?
I mean, practice for Vegas. Every series is going to have actual practice this time before qualifying.
That's good.
Because now, obviously, we're no longer at a super speedway.
Woohoo!
So, obviously, that's been a big topic of discussion. But
yeah,
all 3 series will have practice at Vegas, with the Cup practicing at 2:05 p.m. on Saturday, which is a little late practice for what they usually do. But obviously, the race is not till 5.
2:05
The
for.
Xfinity will practice from Las Vegas at 6:35 on Friday. The Truck Series will practice Friday at 4:35 because they also race Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, obviously, because being in Vegas, it's 6 o'clock.
3 hour difference from the Eastern.
And obviously, like I said, the Xfinity races at 5 on Saturday, and the Cup races at 3:30 on Sunday. So
3:30 Eastern.
3:30 Eastern.
All right. Oh, it should be fun. Should be a good weekend. I think anybody who go.
I feel like this weekend might be heavily criticized. Or maybe the Cup races from Atlanta.
Well, I was just about to say.
If anything, if it's anything other than a 3 ride or more finish, everything's gonna be like, oh, that race sucked.
Well, that's what I was just about to say that. No, so anybody out there who's going, "Oh my goodness, Atlanta's the best thing. That was awesome. I can't wait to watch this weekend in Las Vegas." Please
Don't
know.
expect the same.
Yeah, please know that they are different racetracks.
And did we
Literally.
mention the odds?
Sure.
The odds have been released.
All right.
Kyle Larson is the favorite at plus 400.
Okay.
I can see Devin pulling out his phone now.
No, I don't have any money in DraftKings anymore, so we're not.
William Byron is the second best favorite at plus 850, as well as Denny Hamlin with plus 850, Ryan Blaney at plus 900, and Christopher Bell plus 900. And poor JJ Yaley, who apparently is an open car, has plus 100,000 odds to win at Las Vegas.
I'll take it.
If you put like $2 in, you could be coming home with a lot of money.
Could win a lot of money right there. Yeah. No, I think I'm gonna take the weekend off from sports betting.
And also, Derek Kraus is making his Cup Series debut this weekend from Las Vegas.
Nice.
I forget.
It'll be exciting.
I forget what team he is. I think it's Colleague.
It'll be an exciting weekend for sure. So definitely check it out on the Fox family of networks, and yeah, we'll see what happens.
I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to find it. I'm going to try to find it now. What team Derek Kraus is driving for this weekend? I forgot.
Okay. But yeah, no, I think while he looks that up, I think definitely people need to go into this race with an open mind. Can't necessarily say that this race is going to be the same way Atlanta ran, but I think it'll be a good race. Vegas usually puts on a good show. Tire strategies involved, fuel strategy involved. I think it's always a good showcase out there. So
yes, usually it is.
So yeah, I mean, I don't have any other thoughts. He said everything I was thinking.
He will be, yeah. So Derek Kraus will drive the number 16 car for Colleague, the Cup car on Sunday. Perfect. Obviously, because that's a part-time. Well, I don't want to say it's a part-time car, but obviously it's going to be switched between multiple drivers now that AJ Allmendinger is back full-time in the Xfinity Series.
Yep. All right. Cool. Well, any final thoughts here in general?
Looking forward to Las Vegas.
Viva Las Vegas. There's my singing. See?
Stop never do that again.
Stopped him from talking. Wow. Okay, good to know.
So Las Vegas, I think usually it's not too bad of a race, I think, overall for all three series there. Yeah. Obviously, one thing that's usually talked about is the Bubba Wallace Kyle Larson incident from 2022. But I mean, I'm looking forward to this weekend. I think we got some good racing on our hand. I'll knock on wood.
Also on the motorsports calendar, one more final thing before we have to go.
Formula One this weekend.
Yep, Bahrain International Circuit, 10 a.m. Eastern. I think you can watch it on ESPN.
We still got a couple weeks till IndyCar though. We still got a couple weeks actually.
I think they come back either the
March 10th.
Yeah, so next weekend.
2 weekends.
That's what I meant. Yeah, right. That's what I meant. 2 weeks. Trying to find.
I forget where they are. I'll look it up.
Right St. Pete. That's where they'll be.
St. Petersburg, Florida.
Yep. So yep, Bahrain this weekend for Formula One. We can kind of, if either of us catch any of that, we can chat about that. And yeah, so don't forget.
Looking forward, Max Verstappen, another win.
Don't forget to share, obviously, this podcast. Spread the word. We're still building. Follow us on socials, Racing Hotspot on Facebook and Racing Hotspot on Instagram. We're now on Spotify and Apple, as well as YouTube and our the DPPG website. And yeah, so cool. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. Until we see each other for next week, we hope you have a great week, and we'll see you all real soon.